There's probably more baby oil on all the muscles in this movie than there are in Diddy's mansion. So Masters of the Universe is the latest 80s IP to get the big screen treatment in 2026. This film, along with Mortal Kombat 2, and if Street Fighter manages to stick the landing, we're going to get the holy trifecta of 80s content in 2026. The film was directed by Travis Knight. If that name sounds familiar, it definitely should. This guy directed the 2018 reboot to Bumblebee, Kubo and the Two Strings, and The Missing Link. He has this great looking stop motion picture movie coming out called Wildwood. I'm super excited for that because he cemented himself as the kind of director that can put out great action adventure movies that the whole family can enjoy. And he does it once again with Masters of the Universe. The film stars Noah Galitzine, Camille Mendez, Alison Brie, Idris Elba, and unfortunately, Jared Leto. Spoiler alert, everyone's least favorite celebrity cult leader is actually pretty good in the film, but we'll get into that in just a second. For those of you that don't know, Masters of the Universe is this 80s cartoon from Mattel that's about He-Man, who hails from the land of Eternia. He's tasked with protecting the land of Eternia using the power of the sword from the evil force of Skeletor. It all sounds super 80s, super eccentric, and super fun, and that's what this movie is. Something I can appreciate about movies that are based on IP from the 90s, 80s that we're getting nowadays is they're fully leaning into the cheesiness of everything. You know, gone are the days of dark reboots and gritty sequels that, live in realism. Like, studios are realizing that, no, we got 80s IP with 80s content. Everything should just kind of feel the same way it did in the original form. And that's what we get with Masters of the Universe. This movie is super fun. It's a great summer blockbuster, in my opinion. I think anyone can go in, even if you haven't seen the cartoon. You can go in and enjoy this, and you'll get the same amount of fun that someone who's a super fan would. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of super fans. In my early screening, there was a guy with the power of the sword of power in the men's restroom that was waiting outside in the stall for him. So this franchise has a lot of fans and they're going to go out to support this. But again, if you're not, feel free to do the same. You're going to have a great time. Uh, Getting to the performances, Noah Galitzine as He-Man. I didn't trust in him at first. To be fair, I only knew of him from that Harry Styles fanfic Wattpad movie with Anne Hathaway. What was it called? About You? Something like that. I didn't even care enough to look into what the movie was called. But I knew him from that. I know him from the Cinderella movie with Camila Cabello. Not great films to get, your opinion of an actor from, especially if it's a good actor in a bad film. He has to get a better agent or someone to pick better scripts. But at least it looks like he's doing that now, this year. He was in The Sheep Detectives, and I really liked him in that role. And I did dig him as He-Man. I didn't fully buy him in the beginning, but by the end of the movie, I can say that is He-Man. This movie suffers from a bit of a surfing Dracula problem. For those of you that don't know what that is, it's this theory that basically, if we had a cartoon in the 80s called Surfing Dracula that was about Dracula surfing, we would have him surfing in every episode. Now, in the 2020 remake film, we would have, most of the movie about why Dracula wants to surf, and we get the origin story, we'd get the build up, and then in the last part of the movie, we would actually get Dracula surfing. And this movie suffers a bit from that because although he is He-Man, once he obtains the sword, it doesn't fully feel like He-Man. So, but that kind of also leans into the story. So, this movie is about Adam or He-Man, as he's sent away to Earth at a young age because Skeletor manages to take control of his home, Eternia, and he's sent away for protection. He's given the sword, and he's told his only way home is through the sword, so he better not lose it. He loses it. He's 10 years old, to be fair. And so he spends 15 years, I think that's what they said, looking for the sword, living on Earth. And he doesn't fit in here because he's not from here, to be fair. And he doesn't hide it very well. Everyone that he meets, he kind of breaks down the story of his origin. His name is Adam. He hails from Eternia. He's heir to the throne. Skeletor took, over his land, and took all the people he loved away from him. Tila, Man at Arms, Ram Man, Mechanic. He breaks down everything without thinking. They're gonna think I'm crazy, and people do think he's crazy. To be fair, and knowing that he doesn't fit in on Earth, he's trying to find his way back home by looking for the sword. Eventually, he does find it, does get back home, and now he's got to try to defeat Skeletor and take back the land of Eternia. Like I said, this movie fully leans into the cheesiness of the 80s. It knows what the cartoon was, and that's what it gives us. We do have a bit of a, surfing Dracula problem with He-Man. He does suit up, I will say, by maybe like the hour mark, but then it's not really He-Man. He's still growing to become that character. We're basically getting the teenage version of him as he's learning to become, the hero we all know. Uh, the same thing happened in the Uncharted movie. We got Nathan Drake, but we didn't really get Nathan Drake. We got the young version of Nathan Drake as he's learning to become what we know Nathan Drake to be. And that's what happens with He-Man. With the supporting cast, Camila Mendes is great. Idris Elba is great. Alison Brie is just kind of there. I mean, to be fair, she's not given a lot to do with the script, so I can't really blame her. But Jared Leto as Skeletor is definitely the standout. As I've said before, I'm not a fan of Jared Leto. I don't like him as a person. I think, all the tricks that he uses to, get a good performance, it's all a joke, you know? I don't like him at all. So, unfortunately, when I do see him in a movie, that kind of, you know, pushes my opinion to the negative rather than the positive just because he's there. But I have to admit, anybody could have played Skeletor. There's like 4 or 5 voice effects on Skeletor that it's not really, you know, it doesn't sound like Jared Leto. It does sound like the original Skeletor. And he's written in such a way where it feels like the original Skeletor. The original Skeletor is, evil, scary. He's, he's bad. And he's supposed to frighten you. He's supposed to scare you. But he's also eccentric and goofy and funny. And he has these one-liners. And that's what Skeletor is in the movie. So I gotta say props to the screenwriters, the physical body stand-in for Skeletor. They all did a great job at shaping this character. He also looks great. The CGI and VFX budget must have been shot through the roof because everything is a green screen, everything is VFX, and while some of it does look great, other parts of it, make it look like the next installment in the Shark Boy and Lava Girl franchise. Like, it doesn't look great in certain scenes, but in other scenes, I do have to admit, Eternia looks beautiful. Some of the sets, you can tell that very little was actually physical. Most of it was CGI. But the CGI on Skeletor is pretty awesome. This movie, I can compare it a lot to the Barbie movie. If you've seen the Barbie movie, you're going to know what I mean. Where, it should be a simple premise. It's just a movie about this character that everybody knows from, 80s, 90s. But it's given another layer. Barbie had this layer of, you know, what it means to be human, what it means to be a woman, the troubles that women go through. And that was great. With Masters of the Universe, we get the layer of what it means to be a man. You know, I think I don't think Masters of the Universe, in the back in the '80s, really pushed for toxic masculinity or pushed for the idea of, oh, men are supposed to have muscles, men are supposed to be tough. It was just a product of the times. Back in the '80s, that's what the idea was. That's what masculinity was. And so, nowadays that now we're more conscious about toxic masculinity and what it does mean to be a man. It's not just about the muscles. It's not just about the jawline. It's about the heart. It's about what's in here. And that's what this movie is preaching, you know, not very subtly, but it is preaching it to the audience. And I think that's great. I think, unfortunately, a lot of young men nowadays do suffer with this idea of, you know, looks maxing, giga chatting, this alpha behavior that they get from losers on the internet that push them to believe that, to be a man, you have to have a six pack. To be a man, you have to have a jawline. To be a man, you have to take this amount of nutrients. And it's all bullshit. Like, this movie really reinforces the idea that that's not what makes a man. What makes a man isn't this. What makes a man is this. It's patience, it's understanding, it's these virtues that a man should have to be a good person, to better the world, and to protect the ones that he loves. And I really like that message in a movie. Call me cheesy, but I think it's important that young men learn this. And so if you have a son, if even if you have a daughter, take them to go watch this movie, especially if they're around that age range of teenagers, because it's an important lesson for them to learn that's wrapped up in a bunch of action adventure 80s cheesiness. There's also a great soundtrack. By the way, it's pure 80s, so when I heard The Cure pop on, I got hyped. And then I heard Blondie, oh my god. And then I heard Queen. I was practically, dancing in my seat. I love the soundtrack to this movie. So it's all wrapped up in this, big ball of eccentric fun that you should take the whole family to see. And yeah, so go see Masters of the Universe. I heard it has a big inflated budget, and that disappoints me because bigger budget movies have a harder time making back that box office, making back that money. If a big blockbuster took 200 million to make, it's got to make at least 400 million to start to consider itself profitable. And I don't see this movie doing that. We have Spielberg's new movie Disclosure Day coming out next week. Toy Story 5 coming out the week after. Eventually, we have The Odyssey and Spider Man. I just don't see this movie making back that money, and that's unfortunate because I don't want studios to get the wrong idea that, you know, it's because of the message it had, it's because of the eccentric fun that it was that this movie failed. I think we need to start to scale back on how much we're spending on these movies so that we can actually, see some profit and see more of these projects. So I recommend you see it in theaters. I recommend you see it with your family. It's definitely worth the admission price that, the expensive movie theater is nowadays. But yeah, that's my review for this movie. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.